response tutorial, we are going to be drawing this bird. Now again, I know it's a white animal, but I thought doing a bird was something different, and I just liked the shape that this guy created. So yeah, let's get started. Everything you need is listed below. Materials are on my Facebook group or website. It's all in the description box. If you've got any questions, let me know. And yeah, let's get started. Okay, so as usual, we're going to start with the eye, and I'm coming in with the dark sepia. Now there is going to be a lot of black in this eye, but as usual, I just want to start with the sepia and just map in the shapes first. Now I'd normally use the dark indigo to help us get a nice deep black within this eye, but there's a lot of yellow going on our bird, especially around the eye and the beak. And obviously we don't want to mix these two colours, the blue and the yellow, together, because we'll end up with like that murky looking greens. So we're just going to build up with the dark sepia instead. So I'm just coming round and creating that nice black outline around the eye. Like I said, we will go over with the black. We're just creating the shape of the eye first. And I always do this so that the shape and the size of the eye is correct. And with our eyes, you have the darkest parts and the lightest parts. So it's all mapped in this way if we do it, if we start with the eye. Okay, and then as I'm looking at this, there's like a darker, I'm doing this very lightly. It's going to come around. I think the most complicated part of this bird will definitely be the area around the eye and the beak, and then the feathers won't be too bad. Which you might be surprised to hear me say, but yeah, it won't be too bad. Okay, so I'm just going to darken this eye up a little bit now with the sepia. Okay, I'm then going to take, I think I'm going to take my ivory. I'm just going to zoom right into the photo. Yeah, I'm going to take my ivory. I was just debating between the ivory or the warm grey, but I'm going to stick to the ivory. And use this as the base layer around the eye. Now this is drawn on A4, so it's not the biggest eye. Probably won't be able to get all the detail in that you can see, but we're going to get the majority of that detail. Okay, so that's the ivory. Right, we've now got some nice greeny tones, so we're going to get our green pencils. So I'm just taking my Chromium green opaque, very light pressure. I'm not going to press hard. Just going to come around this eye where I can see the darker shading of green. I'm just bringing that chromium green around. Very light pressure, I'm not pressing hard. You don't need to press hard. And then I've got the earth green yellowish, especially on this side where it's a lot lighter. And then again, I've now got the olive green yellowish, so this is just building up a nice tone that we'll go over with some of the yellow glazes. Okay, I'm just going to take my dark red as well. We've got a bit of a reddish line down that side, so I'm just going to map that in with the dark red. Okay, and then over the top of that with the dark sepia, and that'll just help blend it into that outline. Okay, so I'm then going to take my Kaput Mortem Violet, and around the edge of the eye I can see that this purpley red tone, so I'm just going to use this with a Chromium violet and along here. Right, so now we need some yellow tones. I've now got my cadmium yellow lemon, and I'm going to go over this eye, blending over just the green areas, not the Chromium violet area or the red area, just those greens, and then the light yellow glaze underneath here because it's a lot lighter. Then just going to take back the olive green yellowish, just bring out some of the little details a little bit more, and then we're going to take our black once we've done this and just really darken everything up, and it'll really help make our eye pop. So forget the black, harder pressure now, we want this to be really dark black. And around this eye. Okay, right, so we need to start building up the actual eye itself. So like the bit of skin around the eye. So I'm just going to take the putty eraser because we're going to be using our yellows and ivories. So I've lifted that graphite. So I've got my ivory and I'm just going to apply this as the base layer. So remember with the Fabriano we do use a lot of base layers. It helps just smooth that tooth of the paper down so that we can work on top with our details and other colours. So some papers, if you're substituting the paper, you're using different paper to me, may not need to use as many layers as we do with the Fabriano. Okay, and I'm just going to bring this down. So this is going to be like the outside of this eye. Okay, I'm just going to take my black again because that's not quite dark enough here. Let me just grab. Okay, right. So I'm going to take my green gold, and with the green gold, just going to outline the shape of this eye. Now remember, this is a little bit small because it's A4. Doing something like this would be awesome on a larger scale, but I am trying to make it easy for everybody by using sized paper that everybody can use, and obviously just the one brand of pencils. Now I've discussed Patreon in the past. With my Patreon I probably will use a few other brands and drafting film as papers of choice. So drafting film and Fabriano, but I will always make sure that I pre-warn people before I change paper. Right, then the dark red. Just blending that outwards into that yellow, green, gold area there. And that's going to be right on the edge of this. As well. I'm just blocking in the colour because I'm not going to get much detail. Just blocking in colour. And then I'm going to get my dark cadmium yellow. This is really going to be nice and bright yellow over the top. Back to my green gold. So I'm just going back with the colours I've used, just to help smooth it out and blend. So you may not, if you like I say, if you're using different paper, you may not need to do this back and forth, and then back to the dark red. Okay. Now got my light yellow ochre coming up from this darker bit and just blending out lightly. And I'm going to bring it in and under this eye. This eye is going to get a bit darker underneath here, but the colour will be there ready for us to darken. And then again, my light yellow glaze, I'm just going to sharpen that. Okay, so my light yellow glaze across the top of this eye. Okay, so I'm going back in with my dark sepia now, and I'm just going to darken. Create those lines. Under here is really dark, so we can just darken, blend outwards. So you can see we're starting to really build up this eye now. I'm just going to take my Chromium green opaque in this corner, again blending it out into that yellow, and coming down here. And the olive green yellowish just over the top. Darken, deepen that colour. It's a colour that I really like using in my work. The light yellow ochre. Okay. And then we've started our bird eye. So it's going to start coming down into this beak. So we're going to take the beak section by section. We're going to do the top section and move our way down. We might not get all the beak done today, that's fine. So just going to take my putty eraser and lift some of that graphite. And this is where we're going to start coming in with ivory as a base layer. So I'm just going to do it little by little. So ivory. And about halfway down that beak there. Well, it's not halfway at all, is it? Right. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Taking my green gold again. And in these darker areas, I'm just going to start to use curved strokes, light pressure. So I've got a little gap here and we've got a gap here. The rest is very light pressure with the green gold. I'm just going to come in with another layer of the green gold. Bit of a hard pressure, just really want this green gold to really start showing on top of this ivory. Okay, that's better. Right, so I'm going to take my dark cadmium yellow and I'm going to go over this with the cadmium yellow. Now this is quite a bright colour, so once we've got a couple of layers down, you can see already it's coming out quite brightly. So I'm using about medium pressure. We do want it to be quite bright. It has a nice yellow beak. And this is in that gap and just blending into some of that green gold. And I'm going to bring this cadmium yellow down, this base layer that we've already got mapped in as well. Okay, back to the green gold, so I can see that we can really darken this up now. So I don't go in too dark straight away because you never know if you need to darken it anymore. I'd rather go darker later if needed. Okay. Now need an orange, so we're going to get our orange glaze. That wasn't the orange glaze. Right, so I've got the orange glaze, nice and sharp. And we're just going to start bringing it up over all this colour that we've already applied. Coming down here, so that you can kind of see these lines on this beak. So we're just going to draw our pencil strokes in that direction. Nice and short, so we get a nice smooth look. And I'm going to bring it up and round here. So I'm just following the orange shapes that I can see and just mapping them in, and then I can come in the middle here. Okay, and then I'm just going to take my light yellow glaze over the top. So you can see we're starting to really start to build up this beak, sorry, we're now to the beak. Right, we're going to start to darken up some of this shadow. So I've got the middle cadmium red. And I'm just going to start to build up a shadow. So darker tones, some more contrast coming down here. Just along that edge. I think this area here is going to be quite dark. So I'm just going to start to blend there. Nice shadow coming across the beak here. Okay, and then I'm going back to my orange glaze and I'm just going to blend over that dark cadmium, middle cadmium red, sorry. Right, coming back to the green gold. So it's just a bit of back and forth in this area just to build up the colour. And then the orange glaze. I think the beak we may do in 2 parts. It's quite a lot going on with this beak, that's for sure. Right, I'm just going to take my sanguine, and at the top here where it's kind of going into that fur, it's a bit darker, so I'm just going to very lightly, some little short lines here. And then get my light yellow ochre need to just darken this part. And I'm going to bring that light yellow ochre in here as well. Okay, so we're starting to really build up the colours on this beak now. So I'm going to go back to my ivory, just lift some graphite. Okay, and then with the ivory, I'm just going to apply that base layer and come down on this beak. And I'm sort of bringing this ivory down. It's getting a lot darker and detailed down this side of the beak. So it's coming up to where you can see that black brownish marking starting. And that's kind of where I'm bringing the beak up to on this top half. So we have a darker line here. So I'm going to map that in first with my dark red. It's all about just building up little details. Okay, and I'm also going to take the Mortem Violet, really darken that little edge. And then blend out with the middle Cadmium Red. So I'm making sure all the colours I've used are colours that we've used already, so that it all matches and it all looks part of the same beak. Back to my dark red. Okay. So then I'm going to take my dark cadmium yellow and I'm just going to apply this across the whole of this beak. Now I'm going to use circular motions because we want this part to look quite smooth. So if we use circular motions, it should help us get a nice smooth blend and finish. Just need to erase that graphite, hang on. So I've just got my mono eraser, I've got a bit of a line on the top of this beak. I'm just going to rub out. Okay, and then back to my dark cadmium yellow and those circular strokes. Blending into that area we've already done. So as I've blended in, you can see it all looks like it's one continuous part of the beak. And now I'm going in with my orange glaze along the top here. And this is where we're going to use our orange glaze to just map in those little orange flecks of spots or spotted areas. They're not really spots, but little areas of orange that you can see on the beak. A bit of a harder pressure so that they really come out. And really show nicely. Okay, and then that's coming down. Again, just drawing in any of those little lines that I can see and bringing that orange that's along the top here and blending downwards. You can see we've already just started to really build up some nice detail in this beak. I'm just going to take my light yellow ochre and in some of these areas just darken where needed. And along this top here. Back to the dark cadmium yellow. Okay, right. Going back to my dark red. just going to bring out that little marking that's on the top here. Blending downwards. And then very, very lightly just highlighting that little part of the beak there. And then we're going to start to blend into a darker part of the beak. So I'm just going to take the dark red along this edge. Very light pressure, but you can see it's just adding enough pigment that it's starting to get a darker tone, and that'll help us blend these two areas nicely together. And again, I'm just going to do that sharp edge there as well. Okay, I'm also just going to take that burnt umber. Got a bit of a darker brown area here, so I'm going to make sure I've got a sharp pencil and a light hand. So when I say a light hand, I mean light pressure, and I'm just going to mark in this darker area with the burnt umber. Very light pressure, but you can see it's just darkening that little area of spots. Or this little area. Yeah, it's not a spot, but I keep saying spot. And again, I'm just going to curve that up and under here. Okay, so hopefully you can see that we're really starting to build on. I'm just going to bring this burnt umber in here as well, actually. It will help us with this shadow. But we're really starting to build a really nice looking beak to our bird. So it's similar techniques to what we've used previously, but maybe a few more rounded motions to get the smoother look. Right, I think I'm just trying to work out which is going to be the best way for us to do our bird. Okay, we're just going to keep coming down this top edge. So I've just got the ivory, bringing it down here. Now remember, we're going into a darker area, so I'm not going to bring the ivory the whole way down. So a little bit down here, and then I'm going to take my warm grey I'm going to take my cold grey one. Now when you take your cold grey one and you apply it, be very careful, because obviously the cold grey has a blue hue and we've got the ivory and the yellows, so make sure as you're bringing that cold grey one up that you're very careful. Right, I've just moved you over so you can see just how long this beak is, and I'm just going to start bringing in the cold grey one about halfway down. This part of the beak, I can see some blue undertones, which is why I've gone for the cold grey one. And I'm going to bring it right down to the bottom of the beak. Okay, and then in the gap that I've left, I am going to use the warm grey one. And this area here, we can blend with the browns and the oranges. Blend that over the cold grey one there. Right, you see just how large this beak is. Right, so we're going to start from the top, and I'm going to get my green gold. Just going to blend this downwards. Over that warm grey one area. And the middle cadmium red. We'll just start to bring this beak down. Very light pressure, I'm not pressing hard. And the orange glaze. Followed by back to that green gold in here. Right, so I'm going to take the burnt umber and I'm just going to start to map in the shapes that I can see on this part of the beak. got a nice sharp edge there, so I'm making sure that I keep that sharper edge of that beak. So I know sometimes I say about having nice soft blended edges, but there is times like when we're doing a beak, we need those sharp edges showing. And I'm just going to bring that burnt umber down here. I've got a little bluish tint there, and then bring it all the way down. And this burnt umber is going to be underneath my black, so it's going to give it a nice brownish black. So normally we've used the blacks with like the dark indigo underneath it and the blue tones. This one's going to have the brown undertone. So I'm just going to bring that. Needs to come down a little bit more there. Okay, right. So I've just got that outlined, and then I'm just going to come in with the burnt umber, sharp pencil, so that I can get a nice smooth blend. Bring that burnt umber all the way up. And then as I come up here, I'm just going to start to blend outwards. So lighter pressure, tapering those strokes. It's going to be quite nice actually having this white bird with this really bright pop of colour from the beak. I'm just going to get my mono eraser here. Just lift that little bit of colour there. Okay, right. And then go into my dark sepia. And again, coming in with this dark sepia. Any areas where you can see it being a little darker than the burnt umber, so that line here, and I'm just going to start to bring it down. Again, I've got a nice sharp pencil so I can keep this sharp line of the beak. And just blend lightly outwards there. And I'm bringing that dark sepia down here. So this is just adding another layer to our beak before having to go in with the black. Okay, right, so got my dark cadmium yellow, just gonna bring that in again, and then over the top of that with the orange glaze, and here. Okay, I'm just gonna razor. And then the orange glaze again, just to sharpen that edge there. Okay, that's better. Got a nice sharp edge there. You see just how long this beak is, I can't believe it. Okay, the dark cadmium yellow coming down here. Right, then I'm going to take my black, nice and sharp black, so that we can come along this beak. And I'm using hard pressure now. I really want this to look really dark, a deep black. Okay. We also have the black coming up here, so I'm going to get my warm grey one again. And I'm just going to follow, as I come up here, this here is quite a deep. Let me just work this out in my head. So coming from this line where we've got the dark cadmium yellow, the warm grey one, this is going to be a deep black section. Just coming down here. That curves up there. Yeah, so this is going to be black as well. So I'm just mapping in that little area that's going to be black. Taking my black pencil. That's going to blend up there. Okay, just getting my coal grey one. There's a bit of blue here, so I just need to bring that blue tone back. Okay, back with the warm grey one, and it's going to be dark along here, so I'm just going to come in with a warm grey one, and I'm just mapping out these darker shadows. It's going to be a nice dark straight line coming down this beak. Just get that mapped in, and that's going to come into this darker area here. So nice sharp pencil when we're doing this. Okay, so nice and sharp here, and then I've got that darker pattern happening back in here with the warm grey one, because it's going to be dark here. Oops. And then as it fades out, it's going to be some reddish tones there. So go back to my burnt umber, and I'm just going to map in again using a sharp pencil for these edges. Oops. And I'm going to bring it all the way down. And along that edge. So this is why you need a sharp pencil, because we want that sharp edge. Right, and then my dark sepia. We've got a bit of a lighter gap there, so I'm just going to leave that burnt umber showing through. Just come in here with the dark sepia and bring that dark sepia up here. Okay. And then bring in the dark sepia down. So you can see I've left a gap where that burnt umber is just showing through. And then as we come here again, we're going to have some of these orange tones showing. So I'm just going to bring in some little shapes that I can see happening and build them up with a dark sepia. Just going to take that burnt umber, just darken in here. Right, so it's darker down in that little area. So my orange glaze, just going to press hard here. And then get my middle cadmium red, coming from that black tones just over, and that's just going to help deepen that orange. Okay, just taking my ivory, and I'm just going to bring this ivory down here so that I can work on building up the tones and colours while building up those darker areas as well. Just means that I've got a base layer down so that we can blend nicely into. Bring that down here. Does it need to come? Yeah. I'm just going to bring it all the way down underneath here because we're going to get those orangey yellow tones again, and down here. So this might be the only part of the beak we get done. We'll see. We'll see if we can get it all done, but I don't think we will. And I'd rather us take our time than rush. So going in with the dark cadmium yellow along this part of the beak. And I'm also going to take my orange glaze. Okay, actually I'm just going to take my green gold first before I go in with the orange glaze. Go over this with the green gold. Okay, and then take my orange glaze. That's better. Just along this top edge. And the middle cadmium red, just to blend outwards again, very lightly. I'm not pressing too hard. And then I can go over that again with the dark cadmium yellow, just to blend. Remember, because it's a beak, we want a really smooth look to our beak. So I'm going back to my dark sepia, and I'm just going to darken here now. Okay, I just want to bring in that tone that I can see there. So green gold along here. And then back to my middle cadmium red. Okay. And the light orange, the orange glaze, sorry. So many different words or pencils. Okay, right, happy with that. Our beak's coming along nicely. Okay, so I'm going to take the green gold again along here. Yeah, bring it up here. So we are going to start getting some darker markings coming along there. So even though this beak looked kind of complicated, it's all down to just breaking it down into smaller shapes. And you can see we've broken this down into smaller shapes and we've already started to get a really nice looking beak. Okay, so that was the green gold, and then I'm going to take the dark red. It's a darker tone down here. So I'm just going to blend that out from that black area as well. Leave some of that green gold showing through. And as we come up here, I'm starting to go into this darker brownish red tone. So I'm just going to bring that dark red here. I'm not pressing hard, nice and lightly so far. Because it is such a deep dark red colour, we don't need to press too hard. And then my orange glaze. In there. Okay. Then go into the dark cadmium yellow from the top of this beak downwards. So I'm getting these lighter colours in before I come over the top of those darker colours and these markings on the beak. Making sure it's nice and smooth again. Really want this beak to look smooth. And then my green gold along the bottom edge of this dark cadmium yellow that we've just added in. Oops. I'm not worried about that because that'll hide in a darker area, but you want to try and get a nice sharp edge, remember? Okay, and then I'm going to take my orange glaze. Sorry, I know there's a bit of a shadow. I'm trying to draw in a way that you won't see it, but it's one of those days today. It's not the nicest day outside. and my lighting just isn't playing ball. Okay, the middle cadmium red, I'm just going to bring that again, blend that outwards. Okay, now taking my dark red, and again, nice sharp edge, and this is that colour underneath that is starting to shine through these darker markings. Not pressing hard, light pressure, we're just building up, starting to build up that tone that we can see. And I'm just going to bring that down here as well. So I'm getting that nice sharp edge with this dark red, deep red, dark red it is, sorry. So many different reds. This is the dark red. So you can see I've got that nice sharp edge, and then I've started blending outwards. I'm going to take the orange glaze and just go over that as well. Blend it outwards. Right, back to my dark cadmium yellow. I want this to be a really bright yellow. Just going back over with another layer. Now that I've added more colour in, I can see it just needs to be a little brighter. Right, it's nice to use yellows. I don't normally use them, or I don't within my work anyway. So the burnt umber, and this is where we're going to start just bringing in those shapes. So a nice sharp pencil, medium pressure, and we're just going to start building up some more of this detail. So just follow those shapes that you can see on that beak. Like so, and it's coming all the way up here. Nice and dark with this burnt umber. And again, I'm just going to get that nice sharp edge to this beak. Okay, I've just turned my light off because I'm just wondering whether you can see it better without the lights on. Oh, that shadow. You'll have to let me know if the shadows annoy you or not. I am trying to get better with the filming setups. Difficult, I think, when it's such a large piece. Just going to blend that burnt umber down here as well. Blend it outwards. Okay. And then we're just going to keep coming here. So I'm not too worried if it's not the exact same. I'm just getting some similar markings, but we just want that depth to the beak. It's all about the tonal values. We want that depth in that beak. Okay, right. So as we're coming back up our beak, just going to go back to my green gold here. I think I may just do this half of the beak, and then we'll finish the beak in the second part of the tutorial. Just because it is quite a lot to think about. Okay, that's the green gold. I'm just going to go back to my light yellow ochre. I've put the light back on because I do think it's better with the light. So the light yellow ochre. Circular motions, just so I get that blended look. I'm just going to bring it down here as well. Okay, just my green gold. Okay, right, and then the light yellow glaze just along here. Okay, right, and I'm just going to take the light yellow ochre down here as well. And I think I'm going to leave... Oh, actually, I'm just going to take my green gold again. But we're getting to a point where I'm going to leave the beak at this point. So we've got half the beak drawn in and the eye drawn in. So in part 2, we will finish the beak, because it is such a big beak. And I don't want this tutorial to be going on for too long. I like to try and keep them to around an hour each time. Let's have a look. Just make sure there's no last minute changes. Just going to go in with the middle cadmium red along here. Just a bit more redness. Okay, yeah, I'm happier with that. And then I'm going to go over the top of this again with the dark cadmium yellow. There we go, that just blends it all nicely together. Okay, yeah, I am going to leave our little bird here. And I will see you in the next part where we will finish the beak. So yeah, if you've got any questions, don't forget to leave them below, and I will chat to you all soon. Bye everybody.